What's going on, y'all? Finally had a chance to get out here and do some videos, except unfortunately I couldn't find some of my small tripods, so I thought I'd go ahead and show you guys about whippings and lashings and that kind of thing and making a little improvised tripod. So let's get to it. Alright, this is a pretty simple project. Generally what you want is 3 poles of equal size. This can be anything from real small like this to huge. This is also going to be a really good method for making a tripod for, say, hanging a pot over your fire, boiling water, that kind of thing. So let's get started. You're going to want some bank line. Any size will do. Thin is real good for whippings and lashings. Bank line is superior for this, especially over paracord, only because it's tarred and sticks to itself really well. Has a little bit of stretch so you can get it really tight, so that's always extremely good. Also, you're going to want something to wrap the cordage around to pull real tight. So your lashings, I happened to find this out here and it was curved on one side, so that'll work nicely. So let's get started on that. Alright, so like I said, generally you want your poles equal length. Sometimes depending on what kind of tripod you're making, or if you want it different on one side, you can make the middle pole way longer, but we're going to stick with this. Very simple. I'm going to start with your standard clove hitch. On this one, generally you want to wrap it kind of up at the top. I'm going to come down a little bit, and I'll show you why in a moment. So it's going to start off with your standard clove hitch. Come around behind, crossing over itself so you have that nice X, coming back behind and up under itself. Now I'm doing this rather large so that you can see it, but you just want to go back and snug all that together. And for this project, this will hold real nice. Remember, a clove hitch is only good in one direction. As soon as you pull in any other direction, it just kind of comes apart, depending on what it's tied to and what kind of rope you're using. So keep that in mind. So now that I have that, I'm just going to go ahead and put all these together. Now you want to wrap this pretty tight, but not too tight, because remember you got to go back and put the frapping in between. There's wrapping, whipping, lashing, and frapping. And to some degree, they're all interchangeable. Wrappings and whippings are going to be pretty much just wrapping around something. Lashings is pretty much the same thing, but it's generally more a term used when you're lashing one stick to another. Hence, the term you're used to, lashing. And then frapping, that one is kind of by itself. That's what goes in between the whipping or the wrapping. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. And depending on how tight you have these will determine, well, how stiff your tripod is and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to wrap that a couple of times. Now, you don't want to let it get too bunched up like that, so you kind of want to keep them flat at the moment. Until you get a good base going. Now again, once we go back and put the frapping in between, these will tighten up real nice. I actually want this, for this project, a little bit loose at the moment. So I don't have to get crazy tight with using this at the moment. Generally, you want to do as many fraps in between as you've done with the whipping. In this case, it's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd say, if anything, try not to do less than half for the frappings. It's just more sturdy that way. It will give you more stability in the middle. Again, for something real small like this in a camera that's, not holding my boiling water that I've been searching for days, I wouldn't worry about it too much. So once we get that in place, I'm just going to come around this one here. So this is where you don't want it too tight, depending on what kind of cordage you're using, or else you won't be able to get it in between. And you'll know right away how many you'll be able to fit in between. I mean, again, for something like this, it's really no big deal. 2 to 3 ought to do it just fine. I'm just going to go ahead and cross over top, come around down on the other one. Now, okay, this is where you might want to use an extra pole, because I keep hitting that cut right there and I can feel it. So I'm going to go ahead and use that now. Just wrap that around a couple times. You can get it. There we go, and get that one real tight. Hope I'm getting all this in view, guys. Sorry about the head movement. Alright, so you can kind of test and see how well you're doing. Now again, some of these are kind of tight, and yeah, that's a bit tight and springy. Once you've got your form, if you really need to, you can go back and kind of lash it as is. I'm just going to kind of go around a couple of these. Now this right here is a little unstandard. Technically what you would want to do is finish this up and tie it off. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. You can just go ahead and put a half hitch over the top of it, and that'll work just fine. 2 of those. I always seem to do those backwards. So it's 1. And 2. And again, for this project, that'll hold just fine. Now, back to the problem of it being a little too springy. See what we can do about that. Now, I could cut some of these. What I need to do is I need a way to actually mount the camera to this. Man, I hope I'm catching all this. Is to actually mount the camera to it. So, looks like what I need to do is cut this chunk out here, and I need to somehow make a boom arm for the camera to sit on. I'll probably have to use 2 or 3 of these lashed together and put in the middle. So let's see here. Let's see if we can't wrap this around and get it a little more stable as to how I want it. I'm just kind of going back behind and just kind of getting it in there until it's how I want. Looks like maybe if I go in between a little bit. Yeah, that did it. And then once I have actually the weight of the boom arm and the camera on it, that ought to be fine. So, I'm just going to cut this off here, and since I'm on the same end as my tag end, I'm just going to do a quick square knot. That's about the only time a square knot is a viable thing. A square knot is not made to hold 2 ropes together to use as a bend for a working load. It's meant for tying packages. So keep that in mind. Let's have to do that backwards. Let's see. Your good old left over right. Hope you can see this. And right over left. There. Now I think I'll go back, cut a little bit of that off. That'll do. And again, you can always bury the end post, on the ground or something when you're done. Now this is being a little more springy than I would like. It's a little better. Again, I'm just making a real small tripod here. So now what I need to do is I have to make this attachment that goes for the GoPro fit on here somehow. So like I said, I think what I'm going to do is just maybe wrap a couple of these together, make a little boom arm for it. Probably have to use 4 or 5 or 6 of these. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm just going to make a loop knot at the end here. I'm going to tie an Angler's loop. This is the quick tie method. I'm going to go ahead and do a whole video on this. So anyway, you want to loop from behind. Probably can't see it with this small stuff, but anyway, around your finger, around the back of your finger, just kind of hold it and lay that in between. And you're going to take this loop, and pass it through the other one. Now it's, of course, very difficult to tell here, so I'll be doing this in an actual video, but just go ahead and do that. Now for this, I'm going to have to cut myself a piece off. Just going to go ahead, feed that through. I'll go ahead and arrange these so they're as flat as possible if you can. That ought to do. And just wrap it. And cinch it down every once in a while if you'd like. For this, since I have a tag end up here, I'm just going to kind of come back here a little bit. Again, just a simple square knot or something. Doesn't really matter. Again, I don't know if you can tell, this is completely come loose while I was trying to tie it. Square knot's probably not the best. I'm going to do it anyway. If you can keep tension on, it's acceptable. Alright, there we go. Alright, so that's tight enough. So now what we want here is, I guess it's going to be more stable. Probably with it facing back here. Tripod seems to have come out okay, served its purpose. Again, nothing too terribly special, but yeah, worked out just fine. Alright guys, thanks for watching.